This is my student, Conrad Torp Elmland, who helped with this paper. He did a lot of indexing and collating and stuff. And let's begin. Oh. I told you, stay here until this message, and you went. Okay.
So just check that.
Tell me when I can. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is my 8th colloquium. In 1902, Kirsopp Lake published his groundbreaking study, Codex 1 of the Gospels and its allies, a group of minuscules that became known as Family 1. In 1928, Lake and his co-authors, his wife and another person, added 1582 to the group as core witnesses with 1 and 131. Still today, the dominant hand edition, Nestle-Aland 28, builds on Lake's studies of this family in Mark, assuming that minuscule 1 is the light handschrift. However, significant progress has been made in our understanding of family 1, especially in Matthew and John, and further important members have been discovered. Yes, important work here in Birmingham. David and Hugh, Birmingham, a lot of good work in Birmingham. Further important members have been discovered, in Birmingham. Thus, in her study of family 1 in Matthew, Amy Anderson demonstrated that 1582, copied by the scribe Ephraim in the 10th century, is the leading member in Matthew rather than 1. She concluded Codex 1582 is a nearly exact reproduction of an intermediate exemplar, A1, while Codex 1, along with those 3, is a descendant of the same intermediate exemplar by way of an additional intervening copy, which she called X. Thus, Codex 1 or X and Codex 1582 are independent witnesses to a common archetype. At the same time, it will be seen that the theoretical exemplar X did not preserve the marginalia and contained a number of scribal mistakes, especially mistakes of omission. Anderson linked the family archetype A, a now lost uncial, dating to around 500 CE to Caesarea. She further confirmed that Codex 1582 was copied by Ephraim, the same scribe who copied 1739 and some other manuscripts, and who was extremely accurate in his work and therefore preserved information about the textual tradition that was significantly older than his own 10th century milieu. However, Anderson assumed that there was an intermediate exemplar, A1, from around 600 to 800 CE, from which all extant family 1 members descend. This assumption rested on similar judgments by Gunther Zuntz and Neville Birdsall concerning 1739, that there may have been an intermediate exemplar, and I totally agree. Subsequently, Alison Welsby, also in Birmingham, examined family 1 in John. She retained Anderson's designation A1 of the family archetype, the intermediate, but without trying to date it or go beyond it, and she assumed that it contained many ancient and rare non-majority text readings, and a substantial number of variant readings were given in the margins. Significantly, Welsby demonstrated that there was another group of core members in John, the minuscules 565, 884, and 2193. In the stemma Welsby drew up, she presented a number of now lost witnesses to A1, from which various extant manuscripts derive. Welsby observed that manuscript C, the common ancestor of 1 and 1582, contained a significant number of non-majority text readings, but only a reduced number of marginal readings. Whereas manuscript B, the ancestor of 565, 884, and 2193, preserved a significant portion of A1's marginalia, although the extant witnesses have each at times been corrected towards the majority text. We would further suggest that manuscript D, equivalent to Anderson's X actually, removed the marginal readings altogether. Manuscript C, however, must have preserved a few of the marginal readings, since, as Welsby has demonstrated, 1582 and 2193 have a number of shared double readings placed in text and margins, which must have existed as variant readings in A1 as well. Finally, Welsby demonstrated that 205 Abschrift is actually the exemplar of 205, the other way around, and it has subsequently been registered as 2186 in sum. Among Welsby's most important result was to confirm that codices 1 and 1582 are independent and leading members of family 1, but that they are joined by a new group, 565, 884, and 2193. The archetype A, the uncial, must be dated later than 444 CE, because the core members 1, 565, 1582 attest to an editorial note on the pericope of the adulteress, which mentions several Christian authors, including Cyril of Alexandria. Here is the note, and it mentions John Chrysostom, Cyril of Alexandria, and Theodore of Mopsuestia. Hugh, help. Yes. What do we do now? Adobe Flash Player case. You can read the note. Okay.
It's a scolium.
Yeah, it's a scolium, yeah. So they had no comments about the pericope. Cyril of Alexandria and John Chrysostomos. Do you remember this combination? Yeah, from Clark Bates. Are you here? You're here. So yeah. Moreover, as Jennifer Knus and I have noted, that a version of this note was present in Bishop Mara's Greek Tetra Evangelium, as reported by Pseudo Zachariah in the 6th century. This author had access to Mara's library in Amida, which the bishop had likely assembled in Alexandria, where he died around 532 CE. In other words, the archetype of family 1 can be dated to around 444 to 532 CE. So Anderson put it 500 CE, which is a good guess. Also, there is a connection to the Armenian version, but I won't go into that. Very likely, the archetype A had at least 2 editorial notes. One that concerned the endings of Mark. Yes, Claire Clivas, I publish an article in your Comst bulletin on that soon. And the other one concerning the pericope of the adulteress. These editorial notes were placed in the text itself. Like here in Codex Regius, it's an example of this in Mark. Yeah, Anting has worked on this Codex Regius. The alternative readings in the margins, however, were most likely added later in the intermediate exemplar. And the terminus is the 9th century because that's the date of 565, which is the oldest member of the family. We saw it on the slides. In this same century, we have evidence of the gamma rho symbol in manuscripts to indicate alternative readings, for example, in Codex Petropolitanus Pi. And yeah, you can see how it looks. You can compare it to one of the symbols in 1582. Here you also have this there, and you have the gamma rho there at one place. This is inconsistent. In connection with his editorial work on the forthcoming ECM of John, David Parker has discovered 5 additional members in John. Here we are. 138, 357, 994, 2575, which is a copy of 994, and 2579, a copy of 138, which together with 884 form a catena group. So I put cat there. That derived from B in the stemma. Thus, Welsby's core member 884 is now a part of a group of closely related manuscripts. James, yeah, the chapter is in Klaus Festry. James Dowden has conducted further research on this catena group by collating the manuscripts against a list of singular readings that Welsby had, singular readings in 884, which are now not so many singular readings, only 17 singular for this, for family in family 1. Yes. We can now add a new 2954 member of family 1 that derives from sub-archetype B. I have recently identified it as a new core member. Yeah, Emanuel Contact helped me to get access to this, Romanian. It's in a Romanian museum. Yeah. Okay, so we can add this. It's a new core member, at least in John and Mark, where I have examined it. And it's a catena manuscript, E7I. And it's not part of the catena group in family 1, but it's closely related to it. So apart from sharing 10 of those singular readings Welsby had, we have collated it against Parker's more recent set of 21 rare readings in the catena group, found in no other copies included in the ECM edition of John. And it turns out that it shares 5 of them, as seen on the slide. I put some rings there. In addition, we can also note the rare reading Kaihea Martia, shared also with Papyrus 75 and this group. Finally, in my earlier study, I have collated 2954 in the pericope of the Adulterous, where it turned out that 2954 is nearly identical to 884 and further contains 4 alternative readings in the pericope, introduced with the symbol gamma rho. And all of these alternative readings in the margin align with 1 and 1582. And I think they might reflect double readings in A1, the intermediate exemplar at these points. This leads us to believe that 2954 is more closely related to the catena group than other members of family 1. At this point, we have hypothesized a manuscript F as ancestor of the catena group and 2954. These in turn derive from B with 565 and 2193. So, and you have the full stemma on the handout on the last page. And there are other more weak members of family 1. I won't go into that. So there are some other ones. And thank you, Joey McCallum, for helping me with the layout. I can't do that. Okay. As we have seen, Welsby pointed out that a substantial number of variant readings were given in the margins of the intermediate archetype A1. These alternative readings, Parker explained, are of interest both for the study of family 1 and for the reconstruction of the textual history of the 4th Gospel. Alternative readings in general are unusual. Apart from these, in family 1, Parker identified only 11 other cases in all of the manuscripts to be included in the ECM of John. Parker provided a list of 31 alternative readings in family 1, distributed in 6 witnesses: 22, 118, 1192, 1278, 1582, and 2193. And this list could be expanded and reduced. For example, he included some passages where the marginal reading in 2193 had been erased, so you can't see them, and then therefore they are in square brackets here. And in our analysis of 2193, we have noted an additional 6 passages where this happened. And I think a systematic study of 2193 would likely reveal many more. And in many cases, there are not only traces of erased text and the symbol gamma rho in the margin, but also a critical symbol, if you can see it here, over the word where this variation unit begins. So one should really look out for those, and then to see if there's something in the margin, and perhaps we can do better images someday in this monastery. To make a long story short, we have verified 34 distinct marginal readings in 5 witnesses, And if we look at our stemma of family 1 in John, the alternative readings occur in witnesses deriving from B and C. Oh, and C only 1582, and not D. But many of them, or most of them, were likely present in the intermediate family archetype. And the new family 1 witness, 2954, contains 16 of these 34 alternative readings. These are listed on the table on your handout, the first table. And there are an additional 62 alternative readings. All of these 78 alternative readings are included in the handout, which is 10 pages long, and with a collation. This means that various members at this point attest to around 100 alternative readings, most of which we think were present in A1. And the alternative readings are invariably almost introduced with a gamma rho symbol. So if we go to this table, you can perhaps see it here. These are the 16 shared alternative readings, shared with other members. And we have indicated erased marginal readings with square brackets for 2193. And as Parker noted, there are some examples where the various witnesses switch the text and alternative readings. And it's not always easy to determine what was what the archetype had in text and in margin. Oh, yeah. And Parker further observed that in 20 of these passages, the alternative reading is that of either the majority or many witnesses, while the text has either an old or rare, sometimes unique to the family, and less strongly attested reading. And therefore he concluded that the purpose of the Marginalia was to note the wording more familiar to the compiler or user than that found in the text. That is very important. So here is a very ancient text here, A, and here in the intermediate, we begin to get readings in the margin which are more familiar, and this is an example of gravity toward the mainstream majority text, reflected in these Marginalia. As apparent from table 1, the picture in this sample is different in 2954. In these shared passages, 2954 switches text and alternative reading 12 times, indicated with the arrow symbol, so that the family text is placed in the margin. And in all but one case, the variant in the text agrees with the majority text. This certainly reflects another tendency that Parker suggested would explain why switches happen. The influence of the mainstream text has led to the introduction of the marginal reading into the text and expulsion of the rare reading to the margin. So here's the next step in the gravity towards the majority text, if you see what I mean. Another good example of this tendency are the many corrections in 2193 towards the majority text. We suspect that the corrector of 2193 often used the alternative readings in the exemplar to correct the text. The tendency to switch text and alternative readings holds true for the wider picture in 2954. In total, 54 of the alternative readings are non-majority text readings, 22 of which represent the initial text in the ECM of John, whereas 30 other readings are more or less unusual. Conversely, only 22 alternative readings are majority text readings. In 2 cases, the majority text is split, and in 46 cases, 2954 attests to a family 1 reading. On the other hand, the reading of 2954 text attests to the majority text in 51 cases, so it's dominating there. In 19 of these cases, the majority text agrees with the initial text in the ECM of John. Finally, in merely 27 cases where there is an alternative reading in the margin, the text reading attests to the family 1 text. And in the remaining 4 cases, neither text or margin attest to the family reading. In his article, David Parker discussed one ambiguous case in 12:28, and it is in John 12:28. So pathe doxason su to onoma, or should it be su ton hyon? In her reconstruction of the archetype A1, Welsby placed to onoma in the text and ton hyon in the margin, as in 1582, the very important witness. Parker, on the other hand, preferred the opposite order, as in 2193, in his analysis, suggesting that 1582 in this case had transposed text and margin. Parker argued from a stemmatological point of view that nearly all witnesses deriving from sub-archetype C support ton hyon in the text. However, all witnesses deriving from sub-archetype B, apart from 2193, attest to onoma in the text. Both readings have ample attestation outside of family 1. However, given the clear tendency of 2954 to transpose text and alternative readings, as you can see in table 1, and the corresponding tendency of 2193 not to do so, where they have kept the marginal readings, we agree with Parker that ton hyon was likely the family text and the text of A, and to onoma placed in the margin of A1. Another more general observation is that the alternative readings in the margin is more often longer. I won't go into detail, but it's more general observation. I've always wondered, are the alternative readings more often longer? And yes, they are, but not always. And in the end of this paper, I will look at one of the most spectacular alternative readings to give you a taste of what can be found there sometimes. Not so often, but this is the most spectacular alternative reading. It is in John 1:32, where the rest of family 1 and virtually all other manuscripts read, Kago uk edein apton. I myself did not know him. The John the Baptist did not know Jesus, which may be a bit strange. They were related and so on. And 2954 alternative, if you can read it in the margin, or here actually, ente eremo on uk edein apton. I've translated it. Since I was in the desert, I didn't know him. I was there, I was busy, I didn't know. So an explanation maybe to this, was this a problem? I added one slide. Gabriel, this is because you had this in your list of school, yeah? I was a bit worried. Whoa, is there something there? But actually what I found here in this long explanation, a little bit here, and I was in the desert, so how could he say this? And there's some explanation, but it's not as in this alternative reading. It just shows that this was apparently something that needed a scholion or a marginal variant maybe, but it's still possible that this is from a patristic work or something. I haven't found anything. So that is it. Time for questions.
Well, I have one question.
Yes, go on.
You said in the archetype D that a lot of the marginalia have been removed.
Everything.
What do you think might have been the reason for that?
They didn't need it, maybe. Actually, the scholion, the editorial note to Mark and the pericope dilators is retained in 1, for example, for its 1, but not the gamma rho, not the alternative readings. I can't really.
I have an idea that
yes.
I see in the Psalter, in the Saint-Germain Psalter, that they were trying to produce a deluxe version. And we have a lot of marginalia that have gone into the text and nothing around, but they were clearly marginalia at one point, because we have a lot of doublets.
Yeah.
It's
565 could have had Marginalia, but it doesn't. And that is a deluxe,
Okay,
the black one in St. Petersburg.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
But I don't know. Yes,
We have an online question for you.
okay.
What do the alternative readings that are all evidence of the majority text pull tell us about when the majority text came together? Can it still be held that the majority text is the result of a centuries-long development?
The majority text is, of course, a development, yes. There are other better studies on that, but surely it is. It's a stream which has deep roots, as we can see in the ECM, where, as I can see here also, that sometimes the majority text is also the ECM text. So if you look in the handout, you have many places where this is the situation. Yeah.
Can I ask about the stemma and just, I guess, a methodological question? If you look at maybe the hypothetical ancestor D, which is dependent on C, what justifies having hypothetical ancestors hanging off other hypothetical ancestors? Why couldn't you erase D altogether and just have one coming off C and E coming off? What is necessitating yet another stage there between two hypothetical stages? So I don't know.
They are
if that's
hypothetical,
justified.
but it's classical textual criticism. When you do this, no, but Alison Welsby, that's a whole monograph trying to make out the relationships, and you have some error here, you have some common, you must have had this in the archetype. On the other hand, there is a difference here, and you arrange the different family members according to that stemma, which I think is well thought out. I can give you a longer, yeah, but that is not my work. I'm just building on.
So
yeah.
From E, say, to 2886, what stops you putting a Z in there? I mean,
Nothing. No,
so
but
in that case, how do we know when we should and when we shouldn't? So I mean, you could multiply these hypotheticals. So when is it legitimate to do it, or what suggests legitimacy? I mean, I could see you could just have one coming straight off C, and E, if you still want to preserve E coming off. I don't see what's necessitating or even suggesting.
David can reply. He has worked close more.
To say it's difficult to engage all of the ones, but the question in my mind would be because the work is based on the fact, for example, we have three manuscripts, A and B, always agree together against C, but C never agrees with A or B against one of the other two. That's the most basic evidence in favor of two branches. Right? But the question in my mind, when it gets more complicated, is whether shared readings between Tommy's new manuscript and any other manuscript means you have to revisit the question of the sub-archetypes.
Yeah, and full collation is not just the alternative readings, but it's necessary to make a full collation to be able to say. But I did some collations against singular readings or unique to this group. I could see that it's closer, and I put it there hypothetically. So that's the most unsure part of the stemma for sure. The F and 2954, this is a preliminary hypothesis.
Well, I think that's a right kind of